Hey, gold diggers. This is Felicia Rie. I am the host, the creator, the executive producer of Gold Digger Diaries. Welcome to the gold mine. Of course, you know that Gold Digger Diaries is here for you, and our mission is to celebrate ordinary individuals like you who are doing great work in their communities, their businesses, and their careers. So if you or someone you know is killing their goals, please invite them to watch the show and invite them to reach out to me in order to be on the show. So without further ado, tonight we have none other than the incomparable, the beautiful, the wonderful, the delightful Yvette Mendoza.
Thank you.
Well, hello, darling.
Hi, how are you?
How are you doing tonight?
Thank you for having me on here. I'm good. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for agreeing to come. We got to get ourselves sorted out. This post-COVID self-care thing, we got to get sorted out. So you were the
Right.
first person that hit my mind when I thought about the topic for tonight's show. So tell us a little bit about you, Miss Mendoza, before we go into the meat of the show.
I'm Mexican and Native American. I grew up in the Southwest. I was born in Arizona, raised in California. Um, I have a pretty big family, and we're consistently arguing and competitive and all those things. I've always had a job since I was 14. Sometimes I had two, maybe three jobs. Um, and so I always was very, very curious about how you manage conflict, how you manage life. Those are some of the things that my parents didn't have time to teach me. Um, and so, um, although I dropped out of high school my senior year, I wound up getting my GED, and I wound up going to Kent State. They have a GED program there, and where they support people with GEDs. And so I searched around. I knew I wanted to go into social work, but I didn't really know what. So I searched around, floated from um, I floated from program to program in my bachelor's. I was very, very curious. And the first one I was in was like early childhood education. And I was like, no, this is not for me. Then I went to sociology. I was like, no, this is not for me either. Then I went into conflict management, and I was like, this is for me. Like, I was getting straight A's. I was understanding the material. It was everything that I had been doing. I started college when I was 34 years old. It was everything I had been doing for 20 years or so. I'm a huge advocate for the underdog. I'm a activist. I do a lot of things. Right now, I'm working on a lot of criminal justice reform, and I do free therapy for frontline workers in COVID units through emotional PPE, emotional PPE, and they because I do all that stuff, it all kind of came to head. So, okay, let me go back. I have a master's in instructional technology, which is teaching teachers how to use technology in the classroom,
Okay.
which really was not a good program at Kent State at the time to take. So I took the other program, which I really always wanted to be, but I never knew anybody who was a counselor. So I took the clinical mental health counseling program and got a master's of arts, or a master's of education, I'm sorry, in clinical mental health counseling. Now I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Ohio. So being an overachiever, minority, multi-job person, middle child, always trying to prove myself. Um, I did that. I did my master's program. I did a full-time job. I did my internship. Like, sleep was something I rarely did, and didn't really know what self-care was. And so I'm hearing this in grad school, and that was 5-6 years ago. I graduated when I was 46. I'm 51 now. And graduated from a master's program. And they were always like self-care, 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 but they never quite told me what self-care meant. And I felt like it was different for me because I wasn't meant. Now, everybody's meant for college, but my life path wasn't directed towards college, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Because I don't want somebody else to think that they're not meant for college because their life path wasn't in that direction. Everyone's meant for college. So the people I'm listening to, well, they have ability to self-care in a more expensive way. I'm driving a beater. I got kids. I have a minimum wage job in at the university where I'm not very much. My opinion really didn't matter. I was to be seen and not heard. That kind of stuff. So I never really understood what self-care was because I'm hearing self-care is going to the Alps and skiing, or self-care is, taking a vacation in the Bahamas, things like that. And that wasn't a reality for me.
Right.
So that's why mental health and self-care is very important to me. And that's why speaking about that post-COVID is important as well, because I'll tell more about that later. That's a little bit about me.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I'm so glad that you shared that information, because a lot of it I didn't know, and I thought I knew you well. But I didn't know some of that stuff. So kudos to you for going to school, going back for your master's or whatever, because I feel like it's never too late.
It isn't.
And I kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
Highly commendable. So to get into our discussion tonight, I thought we would define self-care and talk about how it affects mental health. So the textbook definition is, self-care is just providing adequate attention to your own psychological and emotional well-being. And I'm going to take this down and we're going to talk about it. We'll talk about it because I want you to talk about, what self-care means to you and how you feel like it affects our mental health. And like we talked before, it's a buzzword now. So I think a lot of people are saying, oh, self-care, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get a pedicure, manicure.
Yeah, that's the first thing.
Self-care. We're going to talk about real self-care today.
Yeah, because
talk about it.
Yeah. Doing your nails and doing a pedicure and a manicure and getting your hair done, those are maintenance. Those are not really self-care. If you're that person. If it's relaxing for you to do this every once in a while, not weekly, every 2 weeks, every 8 weeks, whatever, that's not self-care. That's maintenance. Right. So my understanding of self-care is anything. Usually it's guilty pleasures, like I was saying to you earlier. It's like those little things that you don't really have time for, but you love. And I'm not talking about anything illegal. You can scratch that out. But
woo woo.
Right. Hey, I'm not against that. If that's you, do you. And if you're allowed to get away with that, okay.
It's medical. It could be a medical
thing.
Thing.
Yeah, and I have no skin in the game. I have no judgment about that whatsoever. But it's a combination of things that help you get your mind off of things, helps you relax and enjoy life, because that's what life is about. So I didn't understand what self-care was until we had to shut down. Because like I said earlier, I've been working since I was 8. I didn't mention that. I had a paper route, but I've been working full time since I was 14. Go. Always had a job or 2, sometimes 3. Always. Never took a break. So as I'm working, I'm thinking the more I achieve, the more successful I am, the more people will notice, that I'm a really hard working person. For what? I don't know. So when COVID hit and everything went to a halt, my clients stopped engaging with me. It became very depressing. I was like, okay, here I am face to face with my own mental health. I've been running nonstop, grad school, work, kids, something's always in the way. And here I am. My kids are adults. I'm single. And I had a job. I was seeing like 36 clients a week. So for a therapist, that's like a 50, 60 hour a week job.
That's a lot.
But I had goals, like monetary goals. And I had something to prove. And also, I'm like the first in my family to ever go to college and to also get to this level. So I felt very obligated to help my family as well. When COVID hit, it was like, nope, nobody's getting help but you. And I was like, but what does that mean for me? What is self-care for me? All right,
Mm,
this bed looks really comfortable. I'm going to stay here for a few months. And I'm
right,
like, this is not self-care. It feels great, but it's not self-care because anything that's too much is not good.
right.
So I had to sit there and understand for myself, what is self-care? What do I like to do? I love ceramics. I don't get to do that because of everything that I do now. But that's something that it's a guilty pleasure that I don't have time for, but I have to carve out time for it in order to care for myself.
Right.
Me touching clay, if you're a gardener, you understand what it's like to put your hands in dirt and how grounding it is.
Mm,
Or I like to crochet as well because it gives me crochet gets your fingers moving and your mind is moving with your fingers and it's not thinking about all that stuff. So what I come to realize is this whole time that I'm overworking, I'm actually hiding from trauma because
mm,
that was what it was. So when COVID hit, I had to come face to face with that.
wow.
And so that was very difficult because I didn't have anything to keep my mind away from that trauma. So then I'm like, what are the things that I do like? What do I like? Here I
Mm.
am, 51 years old, never knew what I liked. What do I like?
So do you think a lot of us do that? We're so busy that we really seriously are not taking the time to say, hey, we don't know what we like. It's just like people, I don't know what I'm supposed to do because we're too busy. We're not
Yeah.
standing still.
Yeah. And I think that, uh, especially from people who come from lower socioeconomic spaces who are trying to live the American dream and doing everything to get there with no guidance and no support, they really don't know how to get there and if they've arrived and if it's sufficient and all these things. So here I am thinking that working super hard is going to be some form of self-care for me. I'm taking care of myself. That makes sense, right? But it doesn't. It doesn't. And I don't know if you've ever watched that movie Office Space, but I got to this point where I was just like, yeah, I don't want to work. But
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate. This is my office and it's right next to my bed, which is probably it's not a good combination because I can just roll out of bed and come to work. And although it sounds very ideal, it's not. My interaction is minimal with other human beings. I need to be out there. Like I need to be out there talking to people. I'm not an extrovert by any means, but I get energy from being around people.
People. I think we
Mhm.
all do because there's a natural connectedness when we are together. There's a
Yeah.
natural connectedness that we need as humans. So
Yes.
not having that, I'm pretty sure a lot of us faced a lot of our demons or whatever. But so
I
how do
mean,
you go
so a
ahead?
lot of my clients, and studies have shown that, and my clients also support this, is that a lot of them who had substance use disorders um, magnified that with COVID because they don't get that social interaction that you get when you go to a bar, or no one's watching what they're doing when they're doing drugs because there's no accountability. Like, so, and the stress, mostly the stress related to this, the uncertainty, lack of connectedness. You're already feeling like that if you have an addiction. You don't feel connected. So then this just supports that behavior for many, not
Right.
everyone, but for many.
So you've identified your thing, uh you've come face to face with your issues or your mental issues
Hmm.
or whatever. Now we're getting back to post COVID almost. So
Hmm.
how do you transition out of going through facing your traumas and getting back into how do you transition that back to being busy? Because you're gonna go back
Okay,
to
so
just busy.
no. So some I saw some of the things that I didn't notice when I was doing them. I don't have to overachieve. I can
Mm,
sometimes I tell this to my clients too. 100% is nice, but if you can't do 100%, sometimes 5 or 10% is sufficient.
okay.
I'm sorry, you're kind of blurry, so I don't know if I'm blurry. But
Oh, I think
so
yeah.
so I give myself grace. If I have a day where I'm just like it's not working, I've had plenty of days where I've had to work when it's not working. And I'm in this position right now where I don't. Well, I should, but I don't. Because my mind is the way that I'm learning. What I'm learning now is that I've worked myself so much so that I'm in the space where I don't want to. And it's not even a matter of not wanting to. Like my body is telling me, okay, Yvette, you've run enough. Now you can handle this stuff and you can figure out how to move forward with what your new knowledge is. You don't have to be busy. Work is important financially, but it is not everything. What's everything is taking that moment to go fishing, or taking that moment to go to the ocean, or taking that moment to be there with your kids. I don't have grandkids yet, because if I did, it would be with my grandkids.
Yeah.
But life. I was so busy trying to earn a life that I didn't have a life.
Mm.
And I was so busy trying to provide for other people that I didn't provide for myself. So this is what I've learned post COVID. When you are in a car and the brakes hit, the first thing you do is you feel shocked. I could have hit that car. What's important to me now? You
Mm.
know? And so are we going to get back on the road and wait for the next accident? Or are we going to look at where we're going? And that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, what am I going to do next? And what I realize, what I'm passionate about is so many things about speaking to people, but conflict. My God, we need to fix that. We need to understand and identify ways to take care of ourselves, so that way we don't boil into conflict with other people.
Mm.
If we learn and ground and keep ourselves centered, excuse me, we'll be better able to handle awkward conversations and situations and other people's opinions and their understandings. So it all starts with taking care of ourselves first. And if we
That,
don't do that, we can't be the people we need to be.
yeah, that is huge. So
Mm-hmm.
self-care is like you said before, it's not about going to the spa or doing any of that. It's about taking an introspective look at you and making sure
Yes.
you're okay, so that you won't go into conflict or whatever with other people. And that's
Yes.
what you do not do.
Because if we're not taking care of our inner self and our inner needs, and then we're pulling in like another one of the things I love to say is, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to pour from the saucer. You can't pour from the cup.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whatever spills into the saucer is what you can give. And if you ain't got nothing in that saucer, you got nothing to give.
And
Keep
again,
your cup full. And what that means to me is, when we keep giving everything that we got and we don't get that in return, or we don't even have enough for ourselves, we're really shorting who we could be,
mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
potential of who we really are. So if I'm
Yeah.
looking at myself and I'm thinking that I'm mad at myself because I haven't became what I need to become, it's my fault, because I gave everybody else what they needed when I should have been giving it to myself. And it's not a selfish thing. If you take care of yourself, you'll have enough to
Yeah.
give to other people. And it won't come at a cost to you. It'll come as an overflow of who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
I
if you
have found,
can't do that without taking care of yourself.
yeah, yeah. I have found that that's a part of taking care of myself, because I can't say no. Well, I couldn't before.
Mm-hmm.
But during COVID, I really had to take a look at Felicia and be like, "You, it's not your job to be everything for everybody. You
No.
can say no when you, because a lot of times, a lot of us do this. Somebody will ask us to do something, and we're like, we can't say no. We're just like, okay, reluctantly, knowing we don't have time,
Resentfully and
and
then
you resent,
regretfully.
and then
Yeah.
that to me is not self care.
No.
That's putting more on yourself than you can bear. And then you're
Right.
mad, and you're not doing it you're doing it with resentment. You're like, well,
Mm-hmm.
dang, I wish she hadn't asked me to do this. Now I got to do this and da da da. That's not good, because you're putting bad energy into it already.
Mm-hmm.
You started it with bad energy because you said yes when you really wanted to say no. And saying no is okay. And I had to learn to understand that, Yvette. That was big for me. It's hard for me to say no. Hard.
Yeah, the thing that I always go back to, because it was also hard for me to say no, but I learned from a friar. I was in a leadership class, and it was teaching about leadership. And this guy was a friar, of the religious kind, not the kind that cooks your food. So, and he said, when you say no, you give the opportunity for somebody else to say yes. Why should you have all the knowledge when other people can have it too?
Yeah.
And I thought like that. I was like, yes, that guy's right.
You're
So I
10
was waiting for the next person to say to me, hey, Yvette, I need you to do this. I'd be like, nope, but she can. Well, why don't you ask that person? Didn't feel bad about it at all. And I
Yeah.
loved it because I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, now my no is going to allow somebody else to learn something that they needed to learn. While
Yeah.
I'm sitting here pissed off because I said yes when I should have said no.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know?
Yes. Tracy Latrell, hey, yes. Tracy said, I was that person too. I know better now. And Latrell says, it was hard for me to say no as well, but I'm learning. I think that resonates with a lot of us. That's really a very big part of self-care for me because it keeps me from taking care of myself because you commit to all this stuff. You get you taking care of everybody else's stuff, but you're over here stressed.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's a
And it's
good
not worth
one.
it. Yeah. But if you could just look at it like, I mean, maybe somebody else will want to do it and do it better. You can't do everything anyways. Like that's how I calm myself. I'm just like, no, because there's somebody else out here who really wants to do it. And I don't.
Yeah,
So and it works for me and it still works for me. And I actually use that with my teens too. I'm just like, it's okay to say no because somebody else needs to learn it too. Or that person that's asking needs to do it themselves.
I think in business though it's a little hard because you think first of all you're competitive with yourself, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're like, well, if I don't take on this project, then somebody else is gonna get it, and they're gonna get the project, and I'm not gonna get. Excuse me. So it's a battle, but you gotta
Mm-hmm.
pick you gotta do a better job of choosing your.
Yes. Yeah. So the choice, the ability to make a choice about what you want to take on.
Yeah.
It should not be a blanket yes. It should be a yes with the understanding that you would do it and not have resentment about it.
Yes. So Tracy said, I would say yes and expect people to say yes to me. When they said no, I would be upset.
And I would say to you, Tracy, well, I mean, I don't mean to be mean, but like the expectation is no one else's. It's your expectation, and no one else has the obligation to fulfill it. I'm not trying to be mean to you, Tracy. I don't know you from nobody, but I mean that's really where it lays. Why should other people lean into our expectations? It's
She's
not
better
up to
now.
nobody.
She better now. She used to be that way.
So it could be a very scary thing, especially for a woman who typically has to hold things together.
Yes. Yes.
And then in the business world, well, I'm grateful that I'm not in the business world anymore, but I feel like sometimes when people say no, they get more respect than the people say yes. I do.
Yeah.
It really depends on, again, woman and culture. Okay, because there's an expectation also on the culture side
Yeah.
that you're going to hold everything together because that's what you do. That's what everybody perceives you do. So,
Yeah.
but again, I'm going to go back to Office Space where the guy was like, I don't want to work, and he gets promoted. Like, I feel like that happens so much. It's aggravating.
Yeah.
You see that one person does nothing. Oh, they're getting promoted.
But it's hard, Yvette, in your culture, the Mexican culture and the Black
Hmm.
culture, because
Hmm.
women in our cultures are expected to hold it down, and we.
Yeah, we're like the hub of the wheel, right?
So how do you handle that? You can't tell your family no, because if we're holding it, we're the ones that hold it down.
Well, I have told my family no. And so I'm only really speaking to my children, which is fine. And my kids know I have to tell them that because I have to tell them that it takes all of us helping together to be able to do something. No one person should be doing it all. But they've seen me do that. I have my supervisor, his mom just passed, and he said she never said no to anyone. And he goes, and she taught me that. And I don't think that that's right. I know that's what she wanted, but I'm not sure that's something I should want for myself. And I said, I'm pretty positive that if you asked her if she wanted that for you, she'd say no, that she wouldn't want that for you. And he was like, you're probably right. It's just that's where she found herself fitting in.
Yeah.
By saying yes, she had the respect and things that she wanted at a cost to who she was.
Yeah. That happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That happens a
And
lot.
so for me, I mean, it was for a while, and then I understood that it became, for me and my family, it went from me helping to me meeting an expectation. And that's when I was like, no, I can't meet your expectations. It's not my job. My job is to take care of me and my kids if they need it.
Yeah.
And I was getting to the point where I couldn't even do that. So I was like, nope, cutting everybody off.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be able to survive. And they did.
Wow.
But that was that me who couldn't say no. And now I can.
Yeah. And I think that happens in a lot of families, actually. Family members put burden on other family
Yeah.
members to be that one that always has to say
Right.
yes. Or they know, oh, we know such and such is going to say yes to this.
And I think the part that bothers me the most is you weren't up at late at night with me, cheering me on when I had to do a 10-page report on Bosnia's war. You know, like I mean, and I'm like dying, going, I really don't care about this war in particular, but I know I got to do this paper to pass this class. You weren't sitting there with me, rubbing my back or feeding me or giving me something to drink. You know, you didn't understand what it meant to me to get this education. But now that I have this education and I'm able to make ends meet and have something left, you want what I have. And I come from a very family oriented culture. I get it.
Yeah, you do.
But
Girl, y'all
but
take family
I
to a
can't
whole nother level.
I can't do that. I can't do that. I will not survive like that.
Yeah, yeah,
I won't. And so it's this is where the rubber meets the road. Am I going to continue doing this and kill myself, or am I going to not do this and let you figure out how to survive on your own?
yeah, yeah. It's
And
about
if that means that
something.
I'm acculturating, I'm not trying to acculturate. I'm just saying that's just what it is.
Yeah, it's about self-care. You gotta take care
Mm-hmm.
of yourself.
Yeah, because if you don't have enough, you can't help anybody.
No, no. So let's talk about some of the ways to practice self-care. I know earlier you said, that's some of the rituals that we do, like the spa, the nails, or whatever the downtime is. Then those are more rituals and things that the maintenance you called it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what about meditation, like throughout the day, like when you find yourself in that space
Stressed.
of big stress, just stop and breathe and things like
Yeah.
that. Do you recommend those types of things?
Yeah. I mean, even a 5 minute, you can YouTube this all day. If you don't want to do a meditation session, you can find the YouTube um, selection where it's rain or beach sounds or whatever,
Yes, I love
the
it.
mountains,
Oh,
whatever.
yeah,
Just give yourself some time to regroup, because when we find ourselves anxious or stressed, or we never talk about anxious and stressed like this, we talk about it like this.
yeah,
And that means that that stuff is coming from out of there. That's all out there. What we need to control is what's in here. So
yeah,
whatever it is that we can do to control what's in here is what's important. So
yes,
if it's breathing for you, if it's tapping, because some people do tapping, which is a whole another thing, but it's still part of, it's touching ourselves in meridian points that help us focus back on who we are,
hmm,
um, and what we're about. Breathing, you said breathing exercise works well. Just anything that gets our body moving and making us understand that we are only in control of who we are and what we're doing.
yeah,
And what everybody else is doing, they're going to do whether you like it or not.
yes, absolutely. And one of the things, well, Latrell said YouTube meditations help her a lot. I can
Mhm.
vouch for that because they help me a lot too.
I
Uh,
love listening to the chakra ones, and I also love listening. I'll sometimes go to sleep to them. Um, they'll hit all the seven chakra points. I mean, some people don't believe in that, and some people don't ascribe to that, and I appreciate, and I don't mean to be offensive, but for me, I enjoy it. I love hearing the calm voices, and it helps me wind down and fall asleep. Sometimes I'm just so anxious. There's even like short 2 minute sessions that will help you ground yourself throughout the day.
yeah, yeah, and the you have to be intentional though about doing it. A lot of us
Mhm.
will just deal with the stress, like, oh, I need to, and then eat or feed the stress with something unhealthy. But we have to change our mindset and feed that stress and anxiety with things that will help promote our self care, better self
Yeah.
care. So I,
So if we're so when we're not intentional, when we're not intentionally doing that and we're doing other things to cope, we're gaining something from that. It's a negative gain, but we're still gaining something from that. So if people see me stressed and they look like it looks to them like I'm constantly doing my job, then I'm getting the accolades privately the way that I feel I should or could. If I was to be centered and in control of who I am and not stress about that, would they still care about my contribution to my job?
mm,
We always get something from it, whether it's positive or
are
negative. And
negative.
then the other part about eating when we're stressed, it's almost as if we're trying to silence our voice. And I know a lot of people might not agree with that, but I do think that there's something very valid about that. When you're putting something in your mouth, you're stopping yourself from saying what you really want to say. And it
Mm,
doesn't mean that it's got to be foul. It might be very true, but sometimes some people are afraid to speak up. Some, I'm not saying everybody.
yeah,
Um, so there's a lot of stuff around everything. If we're not trying to take care of ourselves, we're getting a need met somewhere somehow, and it might not be healthy. It might be.
true.
Hmm.
So the last thing I want to touch on, and we talked about it a little bit before we got on, is what I know about the African American community is that we don't access therapy a lot. We're getting better,
Hmm.
but it was always taboo. Historically, it's been taboo. Well,
Hmm.
what do you need a therapist for? What do you need? Oh, you crazy? Like, what's wrong with you?
Hmm.
So it's always
Hmm.
been kind of taboo, but I think it's so important. So if you
Hmm.
could just like, reiterate to our viewers like how important talking to someone is, especially now post COVID as we find our way going back to normal. We hope.
Hmm.
And even if we have to lock down again, because I heard there's another variant coming, but that's another show. That's a whole nother show. Like, oh, we got
Right.
to lock down. But what do you recommend to people to our viewers as far as accessing therapy for self care?
Well, if I'm going to be completely honest, and I'm not saying this from a hateful space, psychotherapy, psychology was created by older white men. So I understand the cultural disconnect. It makes
Mm,
sense to me. Other people might not agree. People are allowed their opinions. It's whatever. But when I started learning therapy, I could not get down theories for anything because it didn't resonate with me. I couldn't connect it to who I was. So
mm,
I understand when people say therapy, they're like, what does that mean? Like, what does that really mean for me? I'm going to tell you my secrets, and are you going to share them with somebody? I mean, there's a lot of anxiety behind it, and it's understandable. Even when I became a therapist, my mom's like, what's that? We don't do that.
right.
But we do that because I'm sitting here with all my family members and I'm telling them what's going on in my life. Like
Do
that's
it
you
naturally
know
through
it's just
conversation.
and it's a different guidance. It's more like therapy is not like I have the answers. You're the person who has the answers for what you have going on. You just need to put a voice to them and sort that stuff out, and
Hmm.
what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep, and there's somebody there helping you stay on track with that. That's how I look at it. I tell my little kids and my adults, I'm gonna walk with you until you can walk on your own. I don't know your life better than you, but I'm going to rephrase some of the things you say. I'm going to help you reframe thoughts so that way you can get through this. But there are other types besides talk therapy. There's EMDR. There's just a bunch of different ways to do therapy. So it's not just, and it's never, I haven't seen anyone lay on a couch at
All right.
all.
No.
So that's a fear. That's not real. So like I will go to the park with my clients if there's no one there because I don't want everybody listening, or we'll sit in a room together, or might have coffee together. I mean, I'll meet you where you're at, and I think that a lot of us need that. A lot of us need to undo some of the stuff that we were born with and some of the things that we carried on our own and some of the things we've experienced. We have to be able to open those up and look at them and see why they affected us so much.
Yep.
And how we can move past that, because you're learning things as you go in life.
Absolutely.
And if you don't unlock that piece, you might not be able to do the next thing.
Yeah. And a lot of us are walking around with unlocked pieces. We just retain and hold in so much. But I feel like talking to someone, and you got to get the right therapist. It's just because it says therapist can be your man, it can be whoever, but it's got to be the right person that you feel comfortable sitting down and talking to. Or
yes. Thank you for saying that, because a lot of people are like, they have to stay. No, I'll tell my clients too, if you don't like me, I'm cool with that. And we just, give me 5 chances. And if we're not getting along, just be like, Yvette, I want somebody else. Because the point is, it's not for you to like me. The point is for you to get the help you need. And if I'm standing in the way of it, I'm not doing my job.
Absolutely.
And a lot of therapists feel that way too. There is a large group of African American therapists, male and female, Hispanic, Latino, Mexican, whatever you want to say, as well, of every culture. So, and also, it's our jobs as therapists to be culturally competent. Are we? Not all the time, but it is our job. That's what we're required to do. You don't have to come in and say, like, I wouldn't have to come to a therapist and be like, being in the Mexican culture, this is the expectation. And she'd be like, tell me more. No, that's a no-no. She needs to go home and do her work and come back the next time and say, I learned this about you.
Yeah.
This person says, does most insurance pay these expenses? For therapy, yes. It depends on what, but there's also a lot of people who do a sliding scale. So you can get it done according to how much you make. If you want to do it on your own, pay for it on your own. And like I said, if you are a person who works in a COVID unit, nurse, doctor, CNA, LPN, whatever, RN, works in a COVID unit, and you're in the state of Ohio, you can go to Emotional PPE online and get free therapy. I'm in there. I will give you 2 sessions for free and refer you to somebody. There's no reason why anybody needs to suffer. I know that I know that therapy is expensive. It is expensive, and it's not easy to get, but there are people out there who will do pro bono work if you really need it, or at least refer you to somebody who's not as expensive.
So what resources do you recommend people in other states access? Because some are in Georgia, some are in Alabama, some are in states.
I would just say, if you're a person of color, I would look online to see if there is African American therapists that you might prefer to go to, if that's something that's for you. Or if you're in the LGBTQ community, you could look for LGBTQ friendly therapists, allies, or people who actually identify as any of the above. But you can find through a Google search anyone that you think might qualify to be helpful. But the problem then becomes, are they going to take your insurance?
So that's where the problem is. Out too, if they take the insurance. Okay.
So, but also wanted to say that every state, every city should have a crisis line. It's a free line to call if you're in crisis. That's free. It's completely free, and you can call it as much as you want to. They can give you references too. Nobody knows. So that's a free service. You don't have to go. And the things that we in Ohio, I don't know if it's universal, but I'm a counselor, a licensed professional counselor, but there's social workers, and they are allowed to work nationally. I'm, as a counselor, only allowed to work in the state that I'm registered in, which is Ohio for me. But I just lost my train of thought. What I wanted to say was just to make sure that when you do get somebody, that there's a connection, that whether they can work outside, because there's a lot of people who travel with their jobs, and if you travel outside of your job and they're a counselor and they're not registered in those states, they cannot work with you outside of the state that they're in. So it's really important to pick somebody who can be flexible with you. But yeah, I think therapy is important. I think everybody should try it at least once. We all have something. I'm not saying everybody's got like mental health issues, but there are things that we go in through life that we can't get through. Felicia?
Well, you're my therapist, so look.
I'm the group's therapist. Let's be honest. You're always referring me to people. I'm like, nope. This is not fixable. I'm just kidding.
I appreciate you so much for that information. And guys, if you have more questions, we've got a few more minutes to have access to Miss Yvette.
I also, the one thing that Felicia might have not mentioned, but I know she meant to, I've started trying to work with corporations and companies and small businesses and big businesses about how to deal with post-COVID mental health in the job, including conflict management, conflict resolution, and adjusting, because that's going to be a major thing when we all get back to our offices. I am not looking forward to getting back to my office. However, I did that once this week and I was super productive. So that I don't know what that means, but I like the flexibility and the irresponsibility that comes with working from home. So, but I love talking about these topics, and there will be conflict when people return to work because people have a different mindset now. So
yes.
I'm in the group as Yvette M. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm a moderator. Thanks, Felicia.
Thank you for that plug. I haven't even gotten to that part yet, Missy. But
I love it. I enjoy it.
And I'm going to put the link for the group, Real Conversation About Relationships, in the comments so that you guys, if you're interested in joining, please feel free. We have Yvette is there. She's one of our moderators. And we have, I think we went up to 21,000 members today.
Yes.
So it's a bunch of people over there talking about relationships and everything that goes along with that. So, and it's real and raw. So if you're not ready for real and raw, don't do it. Don't do it. You know that's gonna make them want to do it. Oh, we gotta go see what this group is about. Well, it's not for the faint at heart, that's for sure. No. Sometimes I'm looking like, okay.
Yeah. I love it when you have to go research to figure out what things are.
Yes. I'm like, well,
what does that mean?
Honey, Latrell, you know, don't you? Sometimes I have to close my eyes like this and be like, no. But it's a good group, and I'm grateful for my moderators. I'm grateful for you. Grateful to you, Yvette, for hanging in there with me and keeping me in line.
I think it's the other way around, but okay.
So before we go, I have to ask you one question.
Okay.
A fun question.
Okay.
This is so serious.
Yeah.
What do you do for fun? And don't say crochet.
No, I love going boating. Boating is like the number one thing. I haven't been in 2 years. Maybe a year. No, it's been over a year. But it was like the summer of 2019. 2020, yes. Summer in 2019. I really like the water. If I could be by the ocean, I would. I'm planning a trip to Delaware. I've never been to Delaware before. Probably next month with another mental health therapist in an RV, and we're just going to go and have a few days at the ocean. That's my rejuvenator, my energy filler is the ocean, the water, the smell, the sounds. That's me. I'm that person. I got to be by water. So when they're telling me like I live here in Ohio, and they're like, oh, there's a beach and it's the Finger Lakes. I'm like, you don't know what a beach is. Do not talk to me. I'm a West Coast girl. You don't know what water is. Yeah. So don't do that. So yeah, I'm trying to get there. That's what I love to do, be in the water.
I hear you. I do too. When's your birth? Are you a Pisces, by the way?
I'm a Scorpio.
Okay. Scorpio.
Mm-hmm. Completely, 100%. So whatever you think about Scorpios, that's me.
Well, I'm married
to own it.
I'm married to one, so I get it. I get Scorpios. You guys are sweet as pie, but that stinger. That stinger. No. But I love it. So, Trill, you a Scorpio too? I didn't wait a minute.
Well. Come on.
I haven't seen that stinger come out of you though. But thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Yvette, do you want to
Yeah.
leave us with one gold nugget? What is one gold
Hmm.
nugget you want to leave us tonight?
I have to think about that. I wish I would have thought about that ahead of time. Um, Hmm. I think if you love yourself, you can't go wrong. And it's okay. It's not selfish. It's self-thoughtful. That's how I like to look at it. If you're thinking about yourself, that's the best thing you can do because all you have is yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. That is great. Self love, self care. Okay, guys, remember to be bold, be fearless, and be inspired by life and whatever is there to inspire you so that you can inspire others. But most of all, be great. And I will see you next week. Bye.